All right, super cool space pilot Ashterothi came up with an idea, and I'm actually thinking that more people who play EVE Online should hear this. And probably a lot of people have thought about this, but I think the way he just like summed it up in like one sentence, nailed it. If you want, if because CCP really, Pearl Abyss CCP, there is really a good thing about faction warfare that it makes you participate with other players. In participation, there's lots of intrigue and backstabbing, and if you want the ship destruction and the character destruction and the replacement of implants and all that, is that you add to faction warfare campaigns, that you add specifically faction warfare missions. Like, my whole thing was, I thought there should always be faction warfare missions, and that these missions are updated like quarterly or every half year, like every quadrant, and that they like and all they would have to do, you see, you don't really have to even update these more than every 2 quadrants or 3 quadrants, because what you can do is have these faction warfare campaigns or faction warfare contests. So this allows for new players that really don't know anybody, because that is kind of one of the problems with faction warfare, is that you have to be relatively social. And it requires like a kind of an understanding of a lot of mechanics of the game that generally are going to be something that's a little difficult to understand if you're a beginner. Faction warfare is expensive as well, because it's just PvP, unless you're in a really like pretty good faction warfare corporation that can afford to, replace your ships. And that's what they do. And I mean, so you have to be, a pretty advanced player, really, but or have a pretty advanced corporation, or a lot of advanced players in the corporation, and that helps. But I mean, if you're not, say, somebody that player versus player is like really natural to your gameplay, like you're used to being, like a campaign player or PvE, that campaigns do a lot that you could basically have, because remember, you're still in the faction, so you're at war at all times, and anyone can murk you, so you're still going to get destroyed. Like, I've been destroyed just shipping things as a faction warfare pilot once or twice. So and it was great. This guy really got me. He totally got me and my alt. As they fleeted together, I was slipping. But as far as making it like campaign, because then you open up the possibility of any and all factions. I mean, like, I think Air, AOM, the Triglavians, Edencom, all of those factions in the game can then be a part of a faction warfare campaigning. Like, imagine what would happen to the Pakvin if suddenly there were Triglavian campaigns. Like, I mean, that would make the game explode. If you did missions for the Triglavians and you didn't know what you got, but you started to get like dank loot from the campaign, dank rewards. You don't even have to tell people what the rewards are, as long as the rewards are worth it, and especially if there's something based out of a faction. Like, imagine just for Triglavian ship skins, you would get a lot. I mean, and imagine this: if your character, say, is an Amar character, does a faction warfare campaign thing so that you get skins for like Amar ships, and so this would then also make it that people could sell the dank loot. Everything about this is something, like when Ashterothi said this, it hit me. I'm like, that is what I was, because then also the factions are alive. That's the big one. The factions are alive, and it's not just sort of this thing you can farm. Because honestly, while I'm not a old OG player, I'm not a Doctor Who fan. I don't know anything about Doctor Who. It was a thing on back when I had television back in those days. So, and BBC only came on like public television on special channels and stuff, or like way out in the VHS realm, or not UHF realm, ultra high frequency television that had a separate dial. That's where you had channel 52 and channel 44, KBHK, channel 44. I know there's going to be one or two of you who are going to be like, oh my gosh, KBHK 44, dude, that's a long time ago. But anyway, but like say, I wasn't very fond of it. Like the Doctor Who thing means nothing to me. Anything having to do with the Triglavians again will get me, I'll try. I'll try it. You know, the Triglavians are to do anything. Like, Zoria wants you to do a mission for her. Boom, I'd be on it. I would just lose ships. But I mean, this is really one of these things, too, of that this can give people who have very varieties of faction standing. And the big one is this could allow for there to be the pirate campaign, where you fight, you do missions for a pirate faction like Sancha or something like that. Like, imagine if with Sancha you got like top of the line boosters, like you just and not you inject them. You were given straight up boosters, like they awarded you in drugs, you know, fundamentally, because just that, oh yeah, you do this, you get this much ISK. Like, that's okay, but I mean, that seems, it's weird. It's a little weird. Because anything gets you ISK. So it's one of these things like, yeah, well, I mean, I don't really feel like I'm fighting for that faction, especially the fact that so many people are so into it. No, that's like their thing. Like when I was in a faction warfare corp for Amar, the people who were into it. I mean, like, way into it. And it had its own Discord for the whole, like, kind of alliance and people who were down. And the thing is just, you have to be into playing faction warfare and playing it a lot. Yeah, I mean, but if somebody like me on a Pacific USTZ, I can't always be there for faction warfare stuff. So the idea that it's like, oh no, but your corporation still gets something if you do these missions. Now, there's probably somebody who's like, oh, people just farm those missions. And it's like, then you make them, you tier them. I mean, sure, there will be people who would do like level ones, but I mean, you just don't make it. You just don't give it that huge rewards, and it really is this thing of like that. At a certain point, it can the amount of lore. What Ashterothi brought up with it is, imagine if what this was Ardishapur. Ardishapur. Imagine if there was a faction warfare mission that came and went like a Cosmos. I mean, similar to a Cosmos one. And you got to do this mission for Ardishapur. If you do not succeed, you like lose some kind of you know, it's you don't succeed. I don't know. You know, if there's who knows what the penalty would be. Maybe the NPCs in these missions will pod you because you're faction warfare. But this allows for there to be this very, very interesting possibilities of there being fundamentally a way that the factions can be alive in the game through the efforts of the players. And I think that would be, I think it would work. I think it would work very well. I think he had a really good point with this because, to some degree, and he probably would understand this, is that when you're, say, a player who's not very good, you're trying to get better, but then at a certain point you're like, wait, all I do is kind of show up to one of these, places to try to plex, and usually get blown up. That's pretty much what I do. Show up, oh, somebody else showed up in like a Nurgle. I have a Tristan and I'm dead. So, and that, because that's what's up. It's like, oh, somebody showed up in, oh, look, they showed up into this, they showed up into that, and now I'm dead. So that's why there's this part of me that's like, this, especially if the idea is that you are supposed to get better and better and better at fighting. For people who want to get better at fighting other people, I mean, it just doesn't, I don't, people are like, no, you just lose 100 ships. There was even somebody who said this, who said, yeah, that's a method. Maybe it'll work. Maybe you'll be good by the end of 100 ships, who knows, but I mean, is there any way that because the whole thing was, remember, they wanted to get people into skill plans, they want new players to be retained. Well, I mean, if the universe is persistent, then, and if these factions are supposed to be something, then make them something. Like, make it worth people's while, especially if the idea is that, I mean, the most powerful level of all of this is RP, is the role play. And why is this doing this to me? Why do inanimate objects not participate with me so often? Okay. Oh, just stop. I'm just having the hardest time with this monkey pawing this thing. And so it's like, I really started to think about it, and I'm like, no, Ashterothi, I think, has also solved the Triglavian issue, in a way. This is probably actually something that he really was thinking about in those lines, is that if people knew that there was, you could actually get some kind of standings with the Triglavians, that would be a big, 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 big deal. And, okay, I've got to stop trying to do this. Okay. And so, yeah, just an idea. I think it's a great idea. I think CSM should lobby for such an idea. I don't think Doctor Who means anything to a very large portion of the players, because Eve is, of course, the one true sci-fi thing in all, in the entire universe. There's, it's the one true game. The only sci-fi worth paying attention to anymore. No, I'm kidding around. I kid. But I do think, though, that really, like, this idea that the factions are kind of these empires that don't interact ever with the pilots outside of just kind of giving them money, it's just a little weird. And there's so much to the game that I'm like, this is your time. I mean, like, you've been around way over a decade, and oh my God, what is wrong with this fucking thing? Okay, I gotta go or I'm gonna destroy this object. All right, later.